Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar, Discover Dana Point, the first US whale heritage site. My name is Ben Williamson. I am the US Programs Director for World Animal Protection. I'm also your moderator for today's event, which means that it falls upon me to let you know that this webinar is being recorded. For those of you unfamiliar with World Animal Protection, we are a global animal welfare non-profit organization with offices in 14 countries around the world. Our mission is to move the world to protect animals, and our vision is a world where animals live free from suffering. We will shortly be introducing our distinguished panel, and we'll have extensive time for Q&A during the webinar, so please feel free to ask all of your burning questions. You can use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, not the chat feature where it won't be seen, and we'll get to your questions a little later in today's webinar. Before we get started with our panelists today, we're going to play a short video clip so that everybody can get a little bit more familiar with Dana Point.
Right in front of us.
I hope everybody enjoyed that. It's a beautiful video. I get moved every time I see it. Absolutely fabulous. We have a wonderful panel for you all today to discuss the launch of our first whale heritage site in the Americas. A bit of backgrounds, and by the way, if you can hear some background, someone's just decided to start a leaf blower outside, so apologies for the noise, but we'll try to do our best with it. The Whale Heritage Site Certification Program was created by the World Cetacean Alliance back in 2015, and we're delighted today to have Dylan Walker with us. Dylan set up England's first whale watching business in 1998, and after spending 10 years taking tourists on responsible boating expeditions between England and Spain, he wrote 2 books, Whales and Dolphins of the North American Pacific and Whales and Dolphins of the European Atlantic. And today, Dylan is CEO of the World Cetacean Alliance, the world's largest marine conservation partnership. Welcome, Dylan.
Hi, Ben. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Dana Point certification as the first whale heritage site in the Americas comes as the result of a collaboration effort by 2 competing whale watching companies. And we're delighted to have representatives from both companies here today. Donna Kalez is president of Dana Wharf Sport Fishing and Whale Watching, which started in 1971 and was the first whale watching company in Orange County. The company is dedicated to helping locals and visitors alike enjoy the unique wonders of Dana Point Harbor and Orange County coastline. Welcome, Donna. Delighted to have you here.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here.
And from Captain Dave's Dolphin Safari, welcome Gisele Anderson. Originally from Rhode Island, Gisele and her husband Dave run Captain Dave's Dolphin Safari, which for 20 years has provided daily trips to see dolphins up to 10,000 strong and now boasts super safe, uncrowded tours to practice social distancing. Welcome, Gisele. And last but certainly not least, we're delighted to be joined from Berlin by World Animal Protection's Global Head of Wildlife Research and Animal Welfare, Dr. Jan-Schmidt-Burbach. Jan has been with World Animal Protection for over 10 years, and in 2019 helped write the group's report, Behind the Smile, the multi-billion-dollar dolphin entertainment industry. Jan started his career in Asia, where he led one of the largest studies on the welfare conditions of wild animals used in entertainment. He conducted his PhD research on Asian elephants and specialized in animal welfare and wildlife trade concerns in Asia. Welcome, Jan.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me.
And thank you to all of our panelists for joining us today. What a collection of dignitaries. We're excited to get this moving. So just a reminder, we would love to have your questions. Please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. I'll ask some questions, but then we'll hopefully get around to the audience questions very soon. So Dylan, my first question is to you, and then I can put myself on mute because this background noise is driving me nuts. Why did you decide to start the Whale Heritage Site program? Why do you think it's so important?
You said when there was a street blower in the background there, Ben, I was hoping it might be a whale blow, to be honest. So we could have squeezed that one in, but sadly not. It's a great question. I want to start actually. To be honest, I just want to start by congratulating Gisele and Donna and the team at Dana Point, because to become a Whale Heritage Site, as you will all find out over the course of this webinar, is no easy task. You know, we're setting a very, very high bar for these destinations. So for Donna and Gisele and the team to meet that bar is a great achievement. So I'm donning my hat to you both right now. But it's wonderful. I mean, Donna and Gisele and their businesses, their whale watching businesses, are both partners of the WCA, the World Cetacean Alliance, and we're a very large global partnership. We have partners in over 40 countries around the world. And going back about 5 years now, we sort of were talking to all of our partners about how we can change the world, really. What might the future for whales and dolphins look like? And what's our dream? What are our aspirations? And you know, we have this incredible historical, cultural relationship with these animals. It goes back, you know, over 10,000 years. There are cave paintings with whales and dolphins on in northern Norway that are 10,000 years old, and that relationship has been very different in different places and at different times, and sometimes it's been incredibly respectful historically and currently, and sometimes we would argue perhaps not so. And you know, we've seen and talked about in recent times keeping whales and dolphins in captivity, which is something that the WCA stands against. Why would you need to do so when you can go and see them in the wild? And there are other things like commercial whaling, of course, which we would view as a sort of negative impact of humans on whales and dolphins, on cetaceans. So we looked across our partnership and around the world, really, and we really tried to sort of cherry pick, like, what are the really amazing things that are happening out there? What are the incredible things that communities that live alongside these animals are actually achieving? You know, where are these respectful relationships taking place? And we sort of drew all that together into what is now the Whale Heritage Site Programme. So we had some key elements of that. You know, we need these sites to really think about conservation and protection of the animals. We need to ensure that people are studying the animals in these sites. If we don't study them, we can't actually understand what our impacts are upon them. So research is really important. We need to ensure that sustainable practices are being pursued, both on the water and on land at these sites. And a really important aspect of Whale Heritage Sites as well, and my personal favourite, is celebrating the animals. We don't spend enough time around the world with all the issues that we face actually celebrating the wins, and there's no better people than Gisele and Donna to talk about celebrating whales, because they live in a place with the world's oldest whale festival, and that in itself is kind of halfway to a Whale Heritage Site. So we basically pulled all these different aspects together into a set of criteria, set a high bar, and thought, well, hopefully there might just be a few sites around the world that could bring their communities together and actually achieve this goal. And if they do, and really become a kind of gold standard for responsible whale watching and the way that communities engage with their marine environment, then hopefully others can look at that, you know, really kind of get some aspiration and sort of try to meet it, and we'll get more and more sites on board. And I just want to make a couple of sort of key points about Whale Heritage Sites, if I may. I think for me, one of the probably the most important aspect of this program is entirely community driven. You know, it is people from within communities that apply for the Whale Heritage Site Programme. And whilst we create a framework, there is lots of flexibility. So it shouldn't matter what your resources are, what your finances are. If you've got a community of people who are willing and able to bring together the ideas that are needed to protect these animals, then you should have the option to become a Whale Heritage Site. And we've gone through sort of decades of marine conservation legislation where often people are the afterthought, really. They're the last part of the process, and often that means that those kind of protections fall down. So hopefully this is the complete opposite of that. Secondly, it's all about collaboration. It's about people working together. And often we're finding at these sites, there are stakeholders who all are very well-meaning, but because they don't collaborate, because they don't talk to each other, because they don't share common goals, they kind of miss opportunities. And, you know, going out on the oceans is like the commons. It's an area that we all share. We all use the same resource. So unless we work together, we really can't protect the animals and we can't protect that resource. And then finally, I just want to say that Whale Heritage Sites is about continual improvement. So although these guys have got this wonderful certification today, I hate to tell you, but this is just the beginning. We want your Whale Heritage Site, Donna Point, to get better and better and better, and be even more an incredible place for people to be inspired by. And of course, most importantly, that really protects these animals and their environment long into the future. So hopefully we're celebrating the start of something even more incredible at Dana Point.
Thank you, Dylan. And let's see now if they're up for the challenge. Donna, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your involvement with the Whale Heritage Sites. Why did this sound like a good idea to you?
Sure. So thank you so much, Dylan. That explained it so well. So in 2013, my company, Dana Wharf Sport Fishing and Whale Watching, I was searching for partnerships in whale watching. I was searching the internet for any group that represented whale watching companies. And lo and behold, I came across the WCA, World Cetacean Alliance. And they just happened to have a conference in Boston that year. And so I was just charged with excitement. I wanted to go to Boston. I wanted to meet these amazing people. At that time, I was emailing Dylan. So we went to Boston and we found that we had a global whale watch community that we could really relate to. They were doing amazing things. It was all about protection of dolphins and whales, and my captain and I learned so much. So I came back, I immediately joined World Cetacean Alliance. And through that partnership, a couple years later, I learned that they were having whale heritage sites. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's a whale heritage site? This sounds so amazing. So I quickly emailed Dylan, learned all I could about the startup of the whale heritage sites. And then quickly learned that you can't just want to become one and you're going to become one. There's a huge criteria. You need to have your community support. And Dana Point is an amazing place to see dolphins and whales. And I knew that, and Gisele knew that. So fast forward to about 3 years ago at a conference that Gisele and I attended for tourism in our area. And they talked the whole time about wonderful tourism, and they never really talked about dolphins and whale watching in our community. And we were blown away. And we got together and we decided that we were going to make sure that Dana Point was on the map, and always knowing that I wanted Dana Point to become a whale heritage site. And so now with my partner, Gisele Anderson, 3 years later, we have accomplished that, and I can't be more happy. So thank you to WCA. It's so amazing to have Dylan here, who started this journey, and I just am so overwhelmed. So thank you.
Thank you, Donna, for all your efforts on this, and what a wonderful achievement it is for everybody. I'd like to now introduce Gisele Anderson, who I was lucky enough to spend a day with recently on my first whale watching experience, and it was a wonderful day, and we produced that fantastic video. Gisele, can you tell us a bit about what the Whale Heritage Site program means for the community? Dylan mentioned that the community aspect being such a strong point. What does it mean for Dana Point and people in your community? Oh, Gisele, you might be on mute there, I think.
There we go. I said that was a really fun day that we spent together, and we got very blessed because, I mean, we headed right out of the harbor, and within a couple of minutes, we were with some Pacific white-sided dolphin, and then it wasn't long after that, we were with a megapod, thousands and thousands of common dolphin, and then there were a couple of gray whales that we heard about a half a mile up the road there. And it was just an incredible, gorgeous day. And I'm so glad you had a chance to experience what we've always known here. So I wanted to say thank you first to Dylan, because this wouldn't be happening without Dylan and all of his efforts to really bring credibility to what whale watching and dolphin watching is, and to draw that distinction between going out and seeing them in the wild where they belong, and then also giving people who want to go whale watching some help in learning where's the best place to go. And not only where's the best place to go and see them, but where do I want to go and support their efforts, and not just show up somewhere where perhaps their efforts are less than sustainable or respectful of the animals. And so Donna and I started working together 3 years ago to bring noteworthiness to Dana Point. We really wanted to bring Dana Point to the world. We wanted to let the world know that Dana Point was incredibly unique when it came to what we have here. We've got these year-round megapods of dolphin with over 450,000 in just one species alone. We have 5 different species of whales that we see throughout the year. And our weather is gorgeous, and we have this beautiful pristine harbor. So we have a lot of different criteria that really separated us. And we thought, well, let's get ourselves trademarked, and that will help. And we got the Dana Point trademarked as the Dolphin and Whale Watching Capital of the world. And Donna said, well, what I really would like is to be a whale heritage site. And I had been watching WCA, and I had been aware of some of the things that they were doing, but this was prior to them actually saying who their first ones were going to be. And then when they named their first 2, I thought, oh, wow. That's big. That is a really good choice. I would have absolutely done the same thing. I would have started with those 2 locations too, because they're so noteworthy and amazing, and their whale watching and dolphin watching practices are awesome. So I said, okay, well, what's involved? And then I got to meet Dylan, and that was the big turnaround for me. I just thought, oh my gosh, we have to do this, because I really caught his vision for what it was he wanted to do. And I wanted so much for Dana Point to have the credibility that being a whale heritage site would bring. And I think that once Donna and I came together and started working side by side, and then working with some incredible people in our community on our steering committee, local government, Chamber of Commerce, our Indigenous, a representative from the Indigenous group, our nature center, our marine reserves right here off the headlands, just a lot of different players, historical society coming in and saying, yes, 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 we want to participate. We want to let the world know. And we would love that designation. Really did 2 things. It drew attention to the local people of what they had, of this incredible resource that they had here. And that, I think, fueled for them a sense of pride, ownership of what we have, and really got everyone on board to say, wow, this is quite the resource, and what else can we do to continue to sustain these safe, responsible practices, this beautiful, pristine area? What else can we do? And that was huge. But then to be able to say with great pride, after going through the application process and seeing how incredibly challenging, and it's not easy, how incredible it is, and to be able to say, we are now one of them, it's just remarkable. And so we're thrilled, because we feel as though it brings Dana Point the credibility that we've always felt it should have, and especially the dolphins and whales off Dana Point. I've told this quick story. Dave and I, after we shortly got married, we went up to Yosemite, and on the way home, he talked the whole 6 hours about how he wanted to do for the dolphins and whales off of Dana Point what John Muir had done for Yosemite. He wanted to bring the world's attention to this beautiful, pristine area, because it would lead to protecting these animals. And so I listened all the way home, and here we are, 22 years later. And that was Donna's father's vision as well when he started his operation in Dana Point 50 years ago with the Festival of Whales. And so here you see the big 50 behind Donna. That's because, we're getting ready to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the very first festival in the world. But Dana Point's been faithful to celebrate that every year. And even last year, we kind of got shut down halfway through COVID. We had a massive parade and we had all kinds of fun activities the first weekend, and then, but we pushed on and pushing on again this year, looking forward to a different kind of a festival, but some events will be in person, whale watching and virtual whale watching. We'll be doing that as well for people who can't come, but other events too. So it's really going to be, exciting. So we just feel very fortunate, very blessed to have all of the hard work, groundwork that Dylan and all the team at WCA have done, and then Ben, to have your support also at World Animal Protection has been amazing. So we're very grateful, looking forward to a fun year to see what else we can do to make Dana Point a standout.
Absolutely. Let's see what we can do. Thank you so much. We're delighted to be involved at World Animal Protection as well. And Jan, maybe this is a good opportunity to come to you for a little background about World Animal Protection's participation. Where do we fit in? And as an animal welfare organization, obviously, maybe you can touch on some of the issues to do with the contrast between the whale heritage sites and the captivity that we see in venues around the world.
Yeah, sure, Ben. So World Animal Protection, as an animal welfare organization, we are working to end the use of captive dolphins for entertainment, right? So, and through the global research that I've been carrying out with our teams worldwide, we know very well the inhumane conditions that over 3,000 captive dolphins face throughout their lives. And sadly, I have to say, I spend most of my time documenting these captive conditions rather than these fantastic whale heritage site environments, which I would rather like to do. So life in captivity for dolphins is indeed really miserable. And I'm sorry to bring the mood down here for a short moment while I outline this, but I think it's quite important to remind ourselves as where we're coming from here. And for example, our data shows that the average size of the largest tank at dolphin facilities is about 400 square meters, which is about the size of an IMAX theater screen. And that's about 200,000 times smaller than the natural home range. Most tanks, though, are much smaller. In this image here, you've just seen, for example, the size of a facility in Mexico, outlined here by the yellow circle, which is where the dolphins spent their entire life. And you see just beside it is the car park, which is immensely bigger than the ponds for the dolphins. And ironically, just a few steps away from that is the natural habitat, maybe not the port, but the ocean where dolphins would live normally. So it's quite ironic and sad to see dolphins in there. Now, coming back to the tank size, actually, for example, in the US, it's even legal to keep dolphins in much, much smaller sizes than what we documented. For example, the US legislation allows to keep dolphins in spaces as small as 12 square meters, which is 120 square feet. That's not much different from a bedroom. And to keep dolphins, intelligent beings like that in such a space is ridiculous. So to imagine that this billion-dollar industry is continuing to breed and capture dolphins, and for each of them to spend their entire life in such an environment is really heartbreaking. So to change this, we are engaging the tourism industry to remove those captive dolphin experiences from their offers. And instead, we request of them to switch to humane alternative experiences for tourists that really want to see dolphins. And with a humane experience, we mean that there needs to be as little negative impact on the dolphins as possible while contributing to their protection in the wild. Observing them in the wild without crowding them or forcing them to interact with people is the only way to have that humane experience. And offering such experiences at tourism hotspots is of strategic importance for our work, because it helps us to redirect the demand away from the captive experience and provides a more humane alternative for the tourism industry to offer to their customers, while providing benefits to the local communities, as we've just heard from Gisele and others. So this is really why we are partnering here with World Cetacean Alliance on the development of whale heritage sites, and opening of Dana Point as one of the accredited sites is obviously really exciting, and it's fantastic to see that taking shape.
Thank you so much, Jan. Well, I think it's a good opportunity maybe now. We've got lots of audience questions. And just a reminder, if you do want to ask your question, we've got about 25, 27 minutes. So we're likely to get to your question, hopefully. Just use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen to ask your question. And Jan, I think the first question is probably best addressed to you, which is about the wild whale watching and kind of the ethics of that, because there are obviously some people out there who would say that the best thing that we can do for wild animals is just to leave them alone. Some people bringing up on the chat that dolphin boating excursions, are we not just profiting from these animals in the wild? So what would you say to that? If it's a bit of a tricky one.
It's a tricky one, but it's obviously it's a good one. It's an important question to ask, and of course, in an ideal world, we'd see dolphins and whales thriving in the wild without any sort of interaction with people or threats from people, and no exploitation of dolphins in captivity. However, the reality is a little bit more complex, and we do need to create incentives for protecting whales and dolphins together with the local communities, humanely and responsively in their natural habitat, especially where we now know that we have these thousands of dolphins in the captive industry, generating billions of dollars for profit. So we need to counter that, and we need to shift the narrative away from that captive scenario to a more protective world for dolphins in natural habitat. And really, when it comes to the sort of development of whale heritage sites with local communities, we're talking about sort of two scenarios here. Either we're working with a local community that is currently exploiting cetaceans in captivity, and through that process, they will be taken towards a situation where they make a living from a more benign relationship through humane observation of dolphins in the wild. Or we're talking about communities that are already conducting whale and dolphin watching, but maybe that's not conducted in a perfect way. Maybe there's crowding through boats, or maybe the narrative or the education to the tourists isn't great. So working with the communities and implementing the whale heritage site criteria will really boost the quality of the tourism there, and will really make sure that the cetaceans in that area are adequately protected from exploitation.
Thank you, Jan. And just before I bring in Dylan, maybe I can ask you to expand on this point. I just want to read out a comment from Anne-Louise, who says, Dana Point is now a standout for me. I will be going there from Boston, where I live, because I know it is promoting the welfare of dolphins and whales. Thank you, Dylan, and all for doing this. So thank you, Anne-Louise, for your comment. Dylan, I know that the World Cetacean Alliance has some strict standards for how people should interact with whales and dolphins. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that, and how the kind of audit process and the certification process make sure that whales and dolphins are managed responsibly?
Yeah, and I think it is it's a good question, and it's a really important question to ask. What is responsible whale watching? Is it possible to watch whales and dolphins responsibly? I mean, I believe it is. I also believe that whilst I think it's in a hugely better position than keeping the animals in captivity, there are some serious issues. I'm sure Donna and Gisele would agree with this. There are some serious issues with whale watching in various parts of the world, and we've done a lot of research on this, and we've run two certification programs. Actually, we have the Whale Heritage Sites program, but both Donna and Gisele are also signed up to our Responsible Whale Watching certification program, which is for individual companies, for individual boats. And there are certain set things that tourists and customers and the public can look for in a responsible operator. And probably the number one thing to look out for is, and ask, do ask before you book an experience, is are you, the whale watching company, following a set of guidelines, which could be voluntary code, it can also be set in legislation, doesn't really matter. It's, are you following them, and are you displaying them? Is that clear to the public? Do customers and the public get to see these guidelines? Do they get to understand? So there's a lot of research that shows that when whale or dolphin watching boats are following the guidelines, the impact on the animals is much, much lower. There are some studies that don't show any impact, which we can, to a understandable level. And there are lots of studies that do show impacts. I think that what the WCA is aiming for is to get to as close to, and I believe we can actually get there, to a zero impact level of responsible whale watching. And that really means, and this is the way we view it, that the boats, or it could be swimmers as well, could be kayaks, could be helicopters, all these things happen around the world, are actually having zero impact, and they're existing in the same space. So we as the tourists are existing in the same space as the animals, and the animals are able to do exactly what they want, as if they were in a situation where we weren't there. And Gisele and Donna will know, because they're responsible operators, that they'll have been in probably thousands of circumstances where that situation is happening. And because you can see how relaxed the animals are. Often they're coming to you. Often your customers are saying, who's watching who here? Are we watching the animals, or is it the animals that are watching us? And when you're in those kind of circumstances, you know that the experience is responsible. So look out for guidelines. The quality of the guide should always be good. You should be getting a good educational experience. That's really important to look out for. So yeah, they're some of the really key important things. But we all have work to do. We can make the industry more responsible. Yeah.
Thank you, Dylan. We had a question about the entanglement issue, and Gisele, I know when we met, that you talked about how you and Dave have done some great things on entanglement. Maybe this is a question best for you. What do we do about the entanglement issue? What can be done? Is it one of the more pressing issues facing whales today?
Right, that's a great question. So that's right. That's Dave's big passion. Nearly, according to NOAA, National Marine Fishery Services census, nearly 1,000 dolphins and whales are dying in nets and gear every day around the world. So that's a really big issue. And we don't see them. We see a fraction of that happening. And this is both, ghost gear and active gear. And we certainly see that. So I think it's a, much like everything, it's a tough road to walk, but awareness is huge. Letting people know that, gill nets can be 30 miles wide, and it's virtually impossible for an animal to try and navigate its way around that. So we don't want to purchase fish from countries that allow that. The United States does not allow that. The biggest net here is a mile. Our fishermen here, I always tell people, if there's something you want to do, then well, don't eat fish. That would be a great start, but not everyone is willing to make that or can make that kind of a commitment. Then if that's the case, purchase your fish from responsible sources. Ask, where was this fish caught? When you go to a restaurant, where was this fish caught? And then how was this fish caught? So the Seafood Watch program is a great place to start. Monterey has a seafood watch. You can look it up. I think it's seafoodwatch.org, and you can look up the different fish that you want to eat, and that it'll tell you whether that's a sustainable fish, a safe fish. And so those are some steps that people can take.
Thank you, Gisele. Thanks for all the work you and Dave are doing on entanglement. People might remember that World Animal Protection launched the Global Ghost Gear Initiative to remove plastic from the oceans, and the vast majority of plastic in the oceans does come from entangled fishing gear and not plastic straws, which are obviously a concern as well. So yeah, we're absolutely behind this effort. Donna, I've got a question about Dana Point specifically, because I've got a lot of people on the Q&A who want to now book a flight to Dana Point at the earliest opportunity.
Yes.
We're very excited about that.
What can they expect to see at Dana Point? Why is Dana Point such, aside from the responsible and the sustainable aspect, why is Dana Point such a magnificent place for viewing whales and dolphins?
Well, obviously right now we're in the midst of our gray whale season, and gray whales are really what put Dana Point on the map 50 years ago when my father started his business in Dana Point Harbor. We were the first business to operate, and we celebrate the California gray whale as it migrates past Dana Point. This is an amazing place to see the California gray whale, just one of our 5 species of whales that we see. It's very historic for us. It's a great time to come. The Festival of Whales, like Gisele has said, is celebrating its 50th anniversary on March 6th and 7th. And we have a huge celebration for the California gray whale because it is the friendly gray whale. It migrates past us every year, and we see gray whales from November through May. So as you can imagine, we see a migration of the California gray whale passed by us on its southbound migration to the bays and lagoons in Mexico. And then in March and April and in May, we see the northbound migration, the gray whale come past Dana Point. And that's when we can see the babies interact with the moms. And that's just one instance of what's amazing about Dana Point. So, and we're celebrating the 50th anniversary. So I really need to talk about that because that's the history. And that's kind of what really, my dad was moved by the gray whales. He wanted everyone in the world to know that this is the best place to see the California gray whale right off Dana Point.
Mm-hmm. Can I add to that?
Yeah.
Ben? So, you know, Southern California is an incredible place to see dolphins and whales. We have this, as I started to say, this incredible population of dolphin that's 450,000 strong. And that's just one of the 5 species of dolphin that we see here. And then we also have 5 species of whales that we see throughout the year on a fairly regular basis: blue whales, fin whales, humpback whales, minke whales, and gray whales. So 5 species of whales. And then we have visitors of other types. So, you know, we might see sperm whales, or we might see sei whales, or Brutus whales, or orca, popping pilot whales, false killer whales. So they'll pop in here and there. But in terms of regular sightings, if people are interested in coming, they can go to DanaPointWhaleWatching.com. And don't search Dana Point Whale Watching, because you actually will get other locations that try to be Dana Point Whale Watching. But just go to DanaPointWhaleWatching.com, and then you'll see what makes Dana Point so special. But one of the things, we have these beautiful headlands. Ben, you showed it in the opening montage, these beautiful headlands that are, they think, used as a navigation point. You can actually whale watch from land up there. There's this gorgeous, gorgeous place you can go and hike and look out on the ocean and see these beautiful kelp beds and just this thriving ecosystem. And then, you know, see for miles and miles. On a nice day, you can see out to Catalina 30 miles away, or even San Clemente Island 60 miles away. Just beautiful, stunning location. But Dana Point is a small harbor. We're not a huge commercial harbor like Long Beach, where we have shipping containers. We're a smaller, pristine harbor. So we like that. It doesn't pose, there's no shipping container threat to the animals that are here. We have a marine reserve that along Dana Point that protects 1/3 of our coastline here. So that's another really nice feature that we offer. But we also, because it's a small harbor, it's quick in and out. But then once you get out of our harbor, and Ben, you saw this, if you were to drain the ocean and walk, you'd be, leaving the harbor, and after about a mile, it just drops off a couple of 1,000 feet. And we've got these deep coastal canyons within a stone's throw of our harbor. And where you have those deep coastal canyons, you have very cold, nutrient-rich water that wells up. Where you have that, you have plankton, small fish, lots of dolphins. And then, of course, other things that, fish and, that whales and dolphins feed on. So I tell people it's kind of like we're at the deep end of the pool where you just jump in and you're there. You're not in a location that might have, a gradual slope that takes you miles to get down to where it's really deep like that. So we've got a lot of unique things. And of course, the festival makes us pretty special, thanks to Donna's dad. So we have a lot of unique features that are special to only Dana Point. And then one of the last ones, and you saw this, Ben, the day that you were with us. We have people, and Donna, out of San Diego or Santa Barbara or other locations up and down the coast. And what they don't have is this huge island sitting 30 miles off their coast that is blocking these huge Pacific swells. So we have that. And on the day that we went out, it was like a lake, right? It was just stunning. Now, it's not like that every day. We do have regular weather, but generally speaking, it's really rare for Donna and I to have to cancel our trips because of weather conditions or, high winds or anything like that. One of the things that really nailed this pursuing things for me was Dave and I, when we go on trips, we go where there's dolphins and whales, and we went to New Zealand, and we went out of Auckland, and I asked the gentleman there how many of their trips they have to cancel because of weather. And it's a third, and that's a lot of trips that you can't go out on, or that the conditions are kind of gnarly. Mm-hmm. So I thought, wow, we've really got something so special here in Dana Point, and the weather is also one of them. So there are great places to go. I'm not saying don't go to Auckland. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous there, and I highly recommend it. But weather-wise, we got something pretty special here in Dana Point, in addition to everything else that we have to offer. So yes, well, please come.
I'm glad you mentioned other places as well, Gisele, because one thing that's happening on the Q&A is we're obviously getting people excited about whale heritage sites, and they want to know where they can go whale watching responsibly and ethically. So Dylan, this question is to you. Outside of designated whale heritage sites, how can I ensure a whale watching experience is ethical? And are there plans to designate more whale heritage sites in the US? People talk about Massachusetts and other parts of California as well. So maybe you could tell us what the future is for the Whale Heritage Sites program in the US and beyond.
Yeah, okay. Good question. I'm going to start with a WCA plug because I can really. So obviously visit Gisele's done it. I'm going to do it as well. So you should definitely check out the Whale Heritage Site website, whaleheritagesites.org. That's worth a look because it shows the current sites. There are 4 whale heritage sites: one in South Africa, one in Australia, one in Spain, Tenerife and Canary Islands, and of course Dana Point in California. So they're obviously fantastic places to go and visit. You can learn more about them on the site. There's also a number of candidate sites. I think there's about 6 or 7 candidate sites at the moment spread around the world, worth a look. I would thoroughly recommend you looking on the WCA World Cetacean Alliance website. So there you will find, I think we have around 30 certified responsible whale watching companies, including Donna's and Gisele's, but there are others, I think in about 20 countries around the world. Many of those are actually operating in really responsible destinations as well, and there are other operators that they would recommend themselves in their location. So that's a good way of looking. In the US, I mean, the US whale watching is absolutely huge. I'm so jealous. I see a harbour porpoise once every 10 years on my bit of coast in the UK. I was listening to Gisele, it just makes me so green. The US is an incredible place to go whale watching. You guys are so fortunate, blessed really, on both coasts, on the East Coast, and on the West Coast. And if you include Canada as well, it's actually almost half the world's commercial whale watching is just in those 2 countries. So it's really is an outstanding region globally for whale watching. There aren't any candidate sites coming through from the US at the moment. We have one actually in Canada, which is North Vancouver Island. That is a very special place with a amazing sort of link to whales and dolphins and other wildlife through an incredible indigenous communities and indigenous cultures, and an incredible sort of respect for whale watching community up there in North Vancouver Island. So from a North American perspective, I would really recommend that place. But there are so many places I could mention in the US that are really good to go to. But if you just follow those rules of looking for, are they using guidelines? Have they got a really good educational guides on board? Looking at recommendations, they are really they're the best ways to go.
Thanks, Dylan. We've got time for a couple more questions. So I've got one that's really for Donna and Gisele about Dana Point specifically. One mentions the parking, and is there an issue that we're going to overwhelm Dana Point because it's maybe a bit small? And also, is there any plan? How can we limit the number of people who want to enjoy it? We've obviously hyped it up a lot here, and how do we not overload the system?
Right.
So,
go ahead, Donna.
So I would say that our harbor, like Gisele has talked about, it's a small harbor. So the commercial whale watching, as just Gisele and I, we have 2 companies, and then we also have the Ocean Institute that is also in the harbor, and they also do more of educational whale watching. But there's not, in my opinion, and I've been here for 50 years, there's not a chance of it being overrun by commercial whale watching. You're not going to see 5 or 6 or 26 whale watching operations out of Dana Point. It is what it is. Like, we are already full in the harbor, and you're not going to see that. We're very cautious of that as well. And so Gisele and I will definitely be screaming if something like that occurred. So we're very good. We're watching it. We have it always in mind, top awareness of the marine life and making sure that there's no overcrowding. So you'll be very happy when you come to Dana Point and you see what's going on there. So I hope that answers.
I'd like to add, I heard a question about parking. So right now, all the parking in Dana Point is free. We actually have new owners of Dana Point. It is technically owned by the County of Orange, but they signed an agreement with a partnership called the Dana Point Partners, and they have ownership for 66 years. And they're spending $220 million on really elevating the infrastructure. So I think when it comes to the actual buildings and parking, I think we're good, we'll be good. But one of the other concerns is, okay, so how does this impact the animals when it comes to boats and that? And I think that recreational boating can be also, something that has to be considered. And our whale watching captains are very experienced. Once you've spent a lot of days out there with the animals, you really begin to understand very quickly what their natural behavior looks like and what their unnatural behavior looks like. And you begin to see, okay, if I do this, they do that. Or if I do this, they don't care. So you really learn, and our captains are very, very experienced. What we see sometimes are people, and this happens everywhere in the world, is we get people who maybe have never been on a boat before. Maybe they went and rented a boat. Maybe they're not experienced. And they're out there, they don't even know that there's a whale out there. They're not on their radio. They're just, and we're like, there's a whale coming. So Donna and I have together done seminars, and we're doing another one, in fact, on March the 4th, and we'll post it live on YouTube. And people can actually learn how to have both successful and safe whale and dolphin watching experiences, because we want to put in the hands of the private boaters, the recreational boaters, really good skills, and just make them aware of different things, and everything from, hey, being on your radio. And here's a great example, just happened to us a couple of weeks ago. A guy unknowingly just went out there and went over the back, not over the back, but over behind a whale, but very close. He didn't even know it was there. Donna and I knew about this event within five or 10 minutes. Both of our captains were out there. They were like, and they text us, then they let us know. So the next step is, okay, guys, get some video. Let's figure out who it is. And then let's have a conversation. Well, the really cool thing is, our captain picked up the radio and they didn't respond. Well, that person came to our dock after they came in and happened to, and looked for our captain and crew and said, hey, I heard what happened. I'm really sorry. I didn't know. And our captain said, no problem. We're really glad that you're aware now. Here's the channel that we're all on. We'll make you aware. If you get on there, we'll make you aware of, an area to sort of stay clear of. And so, as my captain said, a friend was made today. And that's what we want to do. We want to create an environment where people can see the animals, because that's so powerful. Having that connection with those animals. I mean, you're a fan for life. And maybe that for you means that you're more courteous on the water, or maybe you go all the way and you decide, I'm not going to eat fish anymore because I'll never go to a capture park, or I'll never do other things, take other steps. I'm really going to recycle all my plastic, and I'm going to make sure I never use insecticides on my lawn. And you become that person. And so, and you never let balloons go. You never use Mylar balloons or any kind of helium balloon, because it ends up in the ocean. And there's so many different things you can do. So giving people an opportunity to get out there and have that eye-to-eye encounter with those animals is what changes behavior. And so, that's what we want to do, is give people that connection.
I couldn't agree more, Gisele. And we've had some testimony on your behalf as well from Marilyn Green, who says, I've been out on Captain Dave's boat many times over many years, and I've always been impressed with the knowledge about whales and the local dolphins and respect for their safety. The problems with the private boats that speed up, from Marilyn Green. And just before I bring in Jan for a final question about, because people are very energized right now and want to know what they can do. Just want to read out a couple more comments from Francis Goff, who says, thank you for all you do. And from Rain Harbison, who says, congratulations, all fantastic work. So really appreciate all those comments, everybody. It's really, really sweet feedback. So Jan, I suppose the last question to you, people want to know what they can do to stop the captivity of dolphins. Maybe we can point them in the direction of some resources. And a couple of people saying, well, if we did stop captivity, what would you do with the captive dolphins currently used for tourist interaction? Over to you.
Yeah, right. These are two big questions. So let's start with the first one, what you can do. And I think that's obviously important. I think we all have power to change the system as it is right now. We all go abroad. We all, even when we stay at home, we can do something. And it starts with visiting our website and WCA's website and the website of the Dana Point partners, Whale Heritage Sites websites, and support these businesses, support the initiatives that we all run, support our campaigns. I mean, as Wildlife Protection, our campaign is obviously, Whale Heritage Sites is a really important part of that campaign, but our campaign is looking at so many other things in ending captive dolphin industries worldwide. So supporting our initiatives and supporting petitions, for example, where we call out the culprits of the industry that make that exploitation persist, is really important, I think. So do please visit our websites, WCA's website, WAP's website, and our partners at Dana Point and any of the other whale heritage sites think we will share the link to the Whale Heritage Sites websites in the chat as well, so you can see that there. Maybe just another point of why that is important to take action right now, specifically when we look at holidays, and we all probably have holidays planned in the future when we finally can go on holiday again. I mean, it's, I think, itching everybody to go abroad. And that is such a crucial moment right now that we need the tourism industry to think how they want to restart tourism, and to do that not by maximizing profit any way they can, but taking a step forward to really respect nature and the wild animals in nature better, and don't make the same mistakes they've been doing for the last decades by exploiting the nature to the maximum and putting them little tanks on dry land in terms of dolphins. So taking action now, choosing your travel companies wisely, supporting organizations like all of us here on the call is really important to that. Now, when it comes to captive dolphins, that's a really tricky one. What to do with the captive dolphins once the industry ends? And it's something that our team, you know that, Ben, we keep thinking about that all the time. I mean, there's sadly no perfect solution to these scenarios. It's a fact that there's 3,000 dolphins in captivity worldwide. They're kept in tanks. They can't simply be released back into the wild, especially if they're captive bred. We know that they don't do very well when you reintroduce them to the wild, or it takes a lot of effort to do that, and it's just impossible. So the solutions for those dolphins, there's a whole range. Some of them may be able to shift them to sanctuaries where they are. And we support, for example, the development of sanctuaries right now in Greece, for example, where some dolphins might go. In other cases, the venues that are currently exploiting the dolphins, maybe they can be convinced to actually shift their business model and develop themselves something like a sanctuary. Something we see with some of the venues, or one of the venues in Australia we've been working with. They actually closed their doors as a sort of entertainment venue, and have committed to developing sanctuary type facilities for their own dolphins to provide a better captive life for the remainder of their life. So these are some of the options, but all starts really with ending the demand for the industry, and also changing some of the legislation and policies. We need countries to stop allowing breeding of dolphins for commerce. I mean, it just, every time a dolphin is being bred or captured, it means another couple of decades in a tank. And that really needs to end, because we just don't have a perfect solution for that dolphin. So that's really where it all starts. And again, supporting any of our groups here on that call and the fantastic people behind it is where it all starts, and where we can all make a difference.
Well, thank you so much, Jan. We have run out of time. So I just want to say thank you so much to all the panelists for joining us today, to Donna and Gisele and Dylan and Jan, and for everything you're all doing to help make this the last generation of dolphins. As Jan mentioned, you're very welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We are renewing our campaign this year, now that the travel industry is coming back, to reduce the demand for captive dolphin entertainment. We're asking travel companies to move away from selling ticket venues and towards responsible and sustainable alternatives like Dana Point and other whale heritage sites. So you can help be part of this effort. Move Expedia as our travel group target. We're hoping that they will commit, like TripAdvisor and Booking.com and Virgin Holidays, to ending the sale and instead deciding to continue to not continue profiting from dolphin cruelty. So please visit us, as Jan mentioned, at worldanimalprotection.us to join the pod, is the name of our campaign, or scan the QR code in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen now to make a donation to help these efforts. Without the support from generous people like you, our life-saving work on behalf of animals around the world is simply not possible. In 2020, 80 cents for every dollar raised went directly to our program work, like the Whale Heritage Sites program. So if you are able, please donate to us today by scanning the QR code or going online at worldanimalprotection.us. So thank you for your support, thank you for your activism, and thank you for leaving us a donation. It really makes such a difference. And we're going to leave this page up for a few minutes in case you need time to get your phone and take a picture, or alternatively, the website address again is worldanimalprotection.us. So thank you all so much again for joining us. Until next time, have a wonderful afternoon or evening wherever you are, and we'll see you soon.
Yay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. Nice seeing you, Dylan.
You could see you too, Gisele.
Nice meeting you, Jan.
Yeah, nice meeting you, Gisele. Hopefully someday in person.
You know, I was going to share something with you. There was a time back in, oh goodness, like 2000, when the folks over at IMAX made the film Dolphins. I don't know if you've ever seen it or not, but it was really interesting. They came out with us and they shot some of the opening montage of the dolphins on the bow and for the film. And they came and we blocked out the whole day. They paid actually for 3 days to shoot, and they brought, I don't know how many reels of that big massive film that they have. And it was pretty cool because we headed out of the harbor and they were making bets on how long it would take us to find animals, and they thought maybe a half a day or a day to find a megapod. And I think it was 17 minutes into our trip and we were in the middle of a megapod, which was really cool. They actually shot all their film in one day. We didn't need to do day 2 or 3. But because they had paid for the whole day, and normally our trips are 2 to 3 hours, we don't normally, occasionally Donna and Captain Davis will do extended trips of 6 to 8 hours. But typically, you know, we're not with the animals all day. So we don't really know what their range is. And that day though, we stayed with that pod for the whole day. So we left at 7 in the morning and we left the pod at about 4 in the afternoon. That pod of dolphin, that megapod, there were about 2,000 in that group. They covered about 30 miles on that day. And I mean, we left here in Dana Point and we left them off the coast of Palos Verdes, which is about 30.
Sorry,
Yes.
so I'm really sorry to interrupt, but the time is up on the Zoom call.
Okay.
And it's going to
All right.
end in like 3 seconds. So I didn't want
I'm
you
sorry.
to get
I
cut
thought-
off. I
Right.
wanted to give you a heads up. So I'm afraid, thank you all very much for joining. I'm afraid we're out of time. So Zoom is going to kick us out any minute now. So thank you so much for being here.
Okay.
Thanks so much to our panel.